basically in the last month of my pregnancy, and there are a lot of things that I have learned. Everyone talks about how you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick. That is not true. I wish someone would have told me some of these things or warned me. We're gonna be talking all the things, and I am not going to hide the harsh truth. I had no idea that literally like your bladder can like come out of, like fall out of you. I'm gonna be very honest in this video. Something that I did not know about when I took the pregnancy test, a lot of the times when you take a pregnancy test, especially if you take it as early as I did, I hadn't even missed my period yet, so it was really early. The pregnancy test can sometimes, the lines can be super duper faint, or they can be really, really dark. And depending on how like faint or dark they are, it kind of tells you a little bit about how high your hormone levels are, or I think they're called like HCG levels, basically your pregnancy hormone levels. It can tell you how high they are. So when I took my pregnancy test, I was taking it so early, my lines should have been light, but they weren't. They were really, really dark, and that meant that my hormone levels were pretty high, which I then later found out was because I was a little bit further along than I thought. Not a lot, just like a week further along than I thought I was. But sometimes those really, really dark lines can indicate that you're having multiples. So if you take a pregnancy test and it is really early and your line comes out really fast or really dark, sometimes that can mean you're having multiples. I did not know that was a thing, but they often do. Something else in the beginning of my pregnancy, I had never heard anybody talk about, but it was my personal experience, and maybe this is not how everyone feels, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Everyone talks about how you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick. That is not true. Not everybody experiences sickness. I really did not experience any sickness. I did not throw up at all my first trimester. I know that a lot of people who do have morning sickness, it doesn't just happen in the morning. You're sick all day. Like my best friend Abba was vomiting all day long her first trimester. Morning, evening, and night sickness. Like it is not just morning sickness, and I don't really know why they call it that. You are sick all day long. And when I was nauseous, I never threw up, but when I was nauseous, it was all day. It was not just in the morning. Another thing that I felt like no one warned me about is obviously you are still very, very little. Like your baby is so tiny. You're not gonna have a pregnancy bump, but you are going to feel different. And for some reason, that mentally is kind of hard because your body already is changing so much, but you don't see the physical like bump. One of the biggest things that I had a hard time with was I felt like I was bloated and gassy all the time. I then later learned your body is producing a lot of a hormone called progesterone while your baby is developing, and it can actually cause you to be extremely gassy and bloated. So that is a very normal reaction. No one warned me that that was a thing. Not gonna lie, you kind of feel gross. Like you feel like when you eat like a really nasty, greasy meal and your stomach is not happy, you kind of feel a little bit like that all the time. The first trimester, you basically don't see a doctor. A lot of doctors will see you for an ultrasound at 8 weeks to make sure the baby's there and that there's a heartbeat and confirm the pregnancy. But most of the time after your 8-week ultrasound, you don't go see an actual doctor till 12 weeks. So like my very first doctor's appointment with my actual midwife was not until I was 12 weeks pregnant, which is literally the beginning of second trimester. Second trimester, no one told me that between trimesters, like first and second trimester, when you transition into a new trimester, your hormones fluctuate. I thought that it was just like a seamless transition, like the days just changed, but that is not true. That is the one and only time my entire pregnancy that I was sick, was the transition between first and second trimester. And I was vomiting, and like I did not know what was going on. My body just felt so bad, and it only lasted 1 week. It was the week that I transitioned between first and second trimester, and then I felt completely fine after that, and I felt completely fine before that. Something that people did warn me about, but I just don't think I recognized it until it was happening to my own body, was how much your body changes in preparation for breastfeeding, even though you're not producing milk yet. Towards the end of second trimester, I remember like looking down and literally being like, what? Obviously everything get a little bit bigger, but you get so many veins that basically are pumping blood and fluid to this area to help prepare for breastfeeding. And then on top of that, your areolas, they get super dark and a lot larger so that the baby can like hone in on it and find it really easily when they're trying to feed. The other thing that really took me by surprise, I remember Googling it being like, what the heck? Like, this is crazy. Lots of people talk about how when you get pregnant, you'll get like a dark line down your belly. And this is 100% true. You do get a dark line down your belly. Not everybody does, but most people do get a dark line down their belly. And I asked my doctor about it, and she basically was like, I have no idea what the purpose for it is other than just your hormones are doing something. Like, I don't know if it actually serves like a productive purpose. From my personal experience, that line can look vastly different depending on whose body it is. On my belly, it kind of just developed sort of overnight. Like, it wasn't there one day and then it was there the next. It's not a perfectly straight line. I actually have like a straight line from my belly button down, and then it kind of shifts over, and then I have a line like on kind of towards the left side of my belly. So it looks a little bit like the Harry Potter like zigzag lightning symbol on my belly. And it also starts towards the top of my belly and goes all like zigzags all the way down. It's totally normal. Totally fine. Something else in my second trimester that super duper confused me was the difference between your due date and your gestational age. When you're pregnant, you will go to the doctor and they'll calculate your due date, or like when your baby's gonna be born, based off of when you had your last period, and that is when your due date is. However, when you go in to get an ultrasound done, they will measure the baby. They will give you a different date called the gestational age. And basically that is like how big your baby is measuring. So sometimes you'll go in, for example, at my 8-week appointment, I went in and they told me my baby was measuring about a week ahead. In my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that means my due date is gonna change. Like, I'm not gonna be due this day anymore, I'm gonna be due this day. That is not how it works. Babies can go through growth spurts and grow really fast and get ahead and then slow down and then not. The gestational age does not traditionally affect your due date unless it's an extremely drastic difference. Like if your baby was measuring a month ahead, they might look at changing your due date. Yeah, I didn't understand the difference between those two things and how they affect each other, essentially. And I did not realize that pregnancy brain is like an actual scientific thing. So when I looked it up and I'm like, pregnancy brain, what is pregnancy brain? I don't even feel like I have that. It just means you're more forgetful. You're just not as sharp. That's the best way I can explain it, is you're not as sharp as you normally would be. There was like a study done at one point or another that showed that your like actual brain function goes down. So it is like an actual factual scientific thing that you are not like on the same brain waves that you were before you were pregnant. So I was like in denial that I had pregnancy brain, and now I am not in denial anymore because I forget everything. There are times where someone is like, I just told you that, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I don't remember that. Like, my brain is just not where it normally is at. Pregnancy brain is a very real thing. It has scientifically been proven to happen. When I transitioned into the third trimester at 28 weeks, I was feeling great. And then I hit about 31 weeks and I feel like I had this huge hormone dip. I feel like all of my symptoms hit at once. And I had a really, really hard time from 31 to 33 weeks. So about up until a week ago, I was really struggling. I was crying every day. I was uncomfortable. I probably had every symptom almost in the books. Like, I literally was miserable. I was thinking that I was just gonna be miserable the rest of my pregnancy, and I am now 35 weeks pregnant and I am not nearly as miserable as I was 2 weeks ago. So I wish somebody had told me that. I wish that I had known that there are weeks that are way, way, way harder than others. And just because you're getting more pregnant does not always mean that it's gonna just continue to get harder. Sometimes it does get easier. I thought I was prepared for, but I did not realize how important it was until I have been pregnant and experienced some things, is how important your pelvic floor muscles are when you're pregnant and when you're giving birth. I had to experience that the hard way. My baby is sitting so low that he is pushing on all of my pelvic organs that are in the bottom of my pelvis, like my bladder and my urethra, and you can experience something called a prolapse, which is basically where your baby and your muscle walls are so weak that between the pressure of the baby and the muscle walls, you can experience something pushing into the vaginal canal. And I did not know this was a thing up until I was experiencing so much pressure in that area that I ended up going to see a pelvic floor therapist. And I do not have a prolapse, but I do have so much pressure down there that some of my organs are shifting, and like it is causing some minor problems. I think that even if nothing is wrong, it is super helpful to go see a pelvic floor therapist just so that you can prepare for how much trauma that those muscles are going to go through for 9 months, and then also during the labor process. I feel like no one told me that. I had no idea like organ prolapses were a thing when you're pregnant. I had no idea that literally like your bladder can like come out of, like fall out of you. I had no idea any of this was a thing. Towards the end of my 3rd trimester, starting probably about this week, I have been so thirsty. At first I was like worried that it was a problem that I was so thirsty. Then Google and my doctor said that it's totally normal at this point in your 3rd trimester. Your body needs so much fluid that you are thirsty all of the time. Excessive thirst can be a sign of gestational diabetes. I tested negative for gestational diabetes, so that is not my case scenario. I'm just drinking more liquid than I normally do, and that is apparently a very normal thing in your 3rd trimester. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the gestational diabetes test. Everyone on the internet told me how horrible the gestational diabetes test was, how nasty the drink was going to be, how awful I was going to feel, and I am here to tell you that I had a very pleasant and positive experience. The drink that I drank was like the lemon lime, like small, regular one, and I was able to chug it in 2 minutes. I did not feel sick. They took my blood. It was very harmless. I never even got nauseous. It was totally fine. Now I understand that was my personal experience and that's not everybody's personal experience. Don't let the internet scare you into thinking that everybody just has a miserable experience with that. That is not true. I did not have a miserable experience, and I did not think that the gestational diabetes test was horrible as I had heard people tell me it was going to be. This is like a cool fun fact. Obviously I have not gone into labor yet, but a lot of people, they try to have their baby come on its own, like it's called induce. You can go to the hospital and you can get Pitocin to induce your induce your labor, or you can induce naturally by just letting your baby come when they're ready, or there are some things you can do at home to help induce labor. And one of those things is you can have intimate time with your partner, and that actually can cause you to go into labor. There is a lot of hormones and a lot of like just bodily functions that can kickstart labor when that happens. I did not know this, and I'm going to tell y'all because I thought it was a really interesting fact. If your water has broken, you cannot have intimate time with your partner. I don't know why in my head I never even like put 2 and 2 together. Like I never thought twice about it. But some people, their water will break before they ever even go into like active labor. And so there's a chance that your water could break and labor hasn't started, and you might want to try to do something to cause labor to start, and you cannot have any kind of intimate time with your partner, because once your water has broken, that can lead to infection. Anything in that area, anything up in that area, anything touching that area can cause infections. Comment down below some of the things you wish somebody had told you about your pregnancy, or questions that you may have about getting pregnant or being pregnant or whatever. Put them all in the comments and we'll just have a conversation. Everyone can just have conversations about some of these things, because I think it's so great when we talk about it and bring it out in the open and we educate other people who want to get pregnant. This is probably going to be one of my last videos. I think I only have a handful more before my baby comes and I will be on maternity leave. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll maybe see you next week. I may or may not have a baby. Bye y'all. Mwah.